Hey, welcome back to our book series on the Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. Let's get to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is about the natural price of market commodities. First, Smith notes that different countries tend to have different rates for rents, profits, and wages. Those rates are determined partly by the general circumstances of the society, the riches or poverty, their advancing, stationary, or declining condition, and partly by the particular nature of each employment. According to Smith, commodities are priced exactly what they're worth. What they're worth, according to Smith, is their market value. A dealer sells his or her products not at the lowest price possible, but at the market price. The market price is the highest price at which people are willing to buy from the dealer. That price is determined at least partly by demand. Smith first describes what demand is and puts it in two categories: effectual demand and absolute demand. Effectual demand is a demand that is backed up by the money to actually buy the thing you're having demand for. For example, I have 10 euros, I'm hungry, and so I can go around the corner and create demand for pizza. On the other hand, absolute demand is just wanting something. For example, I really want the nice castle that's 20 minutes away from my home. But am I gonna be able to put up the money to buy it? No.
What a loser! What a loser!
Effective demand is the way we think about demand today when we talk about it in economic terms. So how does demand influence the price? Demand raises the price if there's more demand than supply. That is because an abundance of demand means that consumers compete for less products than they would ideally like to consume. That leads to suppliers being able to pick the highest paying consumers to sell their products to. That process drives up the price. Vice versa, demand lowers the price if there's less demand than supply. That is because an abundance of suppliers are competing for less customers. The customers can thereby pick the suppliers that will sell their products at the lowest price possible. That process drives down the price. Smith argues here that in most cases these price fluctuations don't last for very long. If there's more demand than supply, it'll be in the interest of suppliers to raise their supply to meet the interest of demand, thereby decreasing the price. If there's more supply than demand, it is in the interest of suppliers to decrease their supply, thereby driving up the prices. This counterbalancing of supply and demand will inevitably, according to Adam Smith, lead to price levels centering around an equilibrium point. Adam Smith calls this equilibrium price the natural price of a commodity. So this is where Smith introduces the most important concept in economics, the law of supply and demand. In chapter 7, Smith then goes on to describe a few special cases for the natural price of commodities. For instance, in some industries, prices frequently change due to the nature of their production. One example for this would be agriculture, where harvest is hugely dependent on seasonal changes. These fluctuations often lead to fluctuations in wages and profits. Smith then goes on to describe a few instances where the current price of a product can be above its natural price. For example, if the number of suppliers is artificially limited. That could be the case because only some suppliers know how to produce a certain product. So provided that this knowledge doesn't spread around too much, they could charge a price that is above the natural price. Another factor that, according to Smith, can lead to a higher price for a long time or forever, maybe, is a shortage of resources. Smith says that the shortage of resources is a result of natural causes. Today we know that a shortage of resources can be caused by a lot of other factors as well. For example, trade wars or governmental regulations. Of course, there's another reason where the current price of a product can be above the natural price of a product. A monopoly. A monopoly can artificially drive up the price of a product by choosing a price where they can squeeze the highest amount of money out of the customers. Smith notes that a price can be above its natural price for a long time, but seldom is it below its natural price for a long time, because a person selling at this price would realize their loss immediately and withdraw from the market. And enough sellers withdrawing would lead to prices rising again. Moreover, Smith points out that if some law enables workmen to raise their wages above the natural rate, that will lead to prices being above the natural rate as well. That is an argument that is still being used today by opponents of the minimum wage. Smith ends the chapter by saying that prices are also largely determined by wages, profit, and rent. He promises us that he'll get to these three factors later in the book.